In today's video, we're going to be discussing a little bit about the dictator's dilemma and what that has to do with black male consciousness. Let's start by defining what the dictator's dilemma actually is. It's a concept that describes the challenge for authoritarian leaders to maintain their power, and it highlights the tensions between controlling information and retaining their legitimacy and support from the population. So, what then does the dictator dilemma have to do with black male consciousness? So, just going back, black male consciousness prioritizes the black male experience and the archetype of a strong black man and black male sexuality at the expense of other people within the collective. And so the idea is that black male consciousness, or rather black traditionalism, which creates black male consciousness, what it does is it functions as a dictator. Not the people, but the concept of black male traditionalism functions as a dictator, and it controls who and what is culturally intelligible and the access of information that the collective has to the outside world. You think of like dictatorships like in North Korea with Kim Jong Un, and how the people are on a plantation, so to speak, and cut off from the outside world, and they get all their information from Kim Jong Un because that's how he rules the people. So the idea is that black traditionalism functions in the same way. That black traditionalism provides the people with black male consciousness that prioritizes the experiences of black cisgendered men over everybody else in the community. However, within this new era of consciousness, there's an emergence of black people who are now beginning to challenge some of these conventional ideas that have governed what blackness ought to look like for so long. So there are things that are happening outside the realm of cultural intelligibility that are ultimately challenging some of the tenets of black male traditionalism. So, for example, you would say that the desire to control information, the desire to control black people under the hegemonic law of black male traditionalism is kind of conflicted with real world events that the traditionalists have no control over, like severe income inequality, like the climate collapse, and how it's beginning to affect the lives of other people within the community. So tension then begins to arise because the need for accurate information on the state of the union ultimately conflicts with the repression of cultural intellectual pluralism from other people within inside of the collective. So now we have entered into this new era of black consciousness that we kind of dub the weirdo sans or the countercultural black movement. And it has positives and it also has negatives. The positive is that, we get to talk about our experiences as black people on social media and share our stories about our lived experiences. But we also get to see what the state of the black union actually looks like, and how a lot of that is a result of severe trauma and income inequality, which force people from the lower rungs of the community onto these platforms to be able to supplement their income. So one could then argue that the emergence of a wider array of different types of black people from outside the realms of cultural intelligibility are beginning to create some tension between some of the conventional ideas that have governed black people for so long. So as a result, the black power structure has to make a decision. Do they continue with the conventions of black traditionalism at the expense of the people? Or do they seek to create a system that could improve the well being of all of its people at the cost of their power and their influence? The gatekeepers, the traditionalists, have to then strike a balance between their authoritarianism and progressivism for the people, especially people that they deem to be inferior. Due to the weirdo signs and severe income inequality, the traditionalists are beginning to realize that the culture is not as homogenous as they once believed it to be. Another way that their control is beginning to shape is because a lot of the traditionalists come from different historical time periods than the younger generation. And so, because of the change in these generational archetypes, it ultimately is challenging their legitimacy as there's an influx of people who are ultimately thinking differently, and black people who, for example, grew up in the suburbs are talking about their experiences, and it's kind of challenging some of these conventional ideas that kind of fall outside of the realm of what these gatekeepers believed to be about, to believe to be true about black people. So I guess it'll be really, really interesting to see how this all plays out, how what Afrofuturism looks like, what Black consciousness will be looking like in the future, because there is a need now for more cultural intellectual pluralism. But will that happen at the expense of the power and the influence that the traditionalists have maintained over the people for so long? That will be something interesting to see.